ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी शुभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारण। कम करते वाचालम पंगम पातमहम वंदे श्री गुरुम दीनतारणम परमानंद माधवम श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम। हरि ओम तत्सत। हरे कृष्ण। So we will wrap up the class hopefully by 9:15. We actually don't have a lot to cover. We are going to complete chapter 27 of the third canto. A beautiful conversation about how material nature is set up and how it entangles and how the liberation from material nature is possible. The conversation between Lord Kapila with his mother, Mother Devahuti. A very beautiful topic, which so many people, great sages, not just ordinary people, so many great sages, thinkers, munis, yogis, tune into to understand how to extricate themselves from the entanglement of material nature. And it's very important to disentangle. One must have some basic understanding of this. Of course, it is very helpful. Ultimately, of course, if one exclusively surrenders to the Lord, then detachment automatically comes, knowledge automatically comes. That is very true. That is the glory of pure bhakti. But nonetheless, even as sadhakas, wherever sambandha gyan, abhideya gyan, which means knowledge of our relationship with the Lord, knowledge of the process, and knowledge of the relationship with the Lord also includes knowledge of our relationship with material nature and how we are entangled. So all this understanding is helpful for us to be careful not to be trapped by material energy. So it is helpful for us. So as long as jnana, karma, yoga do not cover bhakti and do not become prominent, even for sadhakas like us, if they can become supporting limbs, there is no harm. And this is what Rupa Goswami says. Jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnanushīlanam bhaktiruttam. Uttam bhakti is that bhakti which is exclusively for Krishna's pleasure and not covered over by jnana and karma. It should be supported by certain kinds of execution of prescribed duties in a detached way, or cultivation of knowledge aimed at developing detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna. All these are considered supporting. But ultimately, as has been explained by Lord Kapila also in this particular chapter, is that the ultimate ingredient of the yoga process, which actually can deliver the living entity, extricate him out of the entrapment of matter and take him across the ocean of material existence, across the cycle of birth and death, beyond the material world, beyond Viraj, and deliver him into the spiritual world, is ultimately pure devotion. Because the context in this chapter is Sankhya Yoga, and we have discussed this, Sankhya is essentially an analytical process of trying to understand the truth, which also has aspects of, along with jnana, because it is analytical, there are also aspects of yoga process, because yoga has certain practices which have a disciplined way to control the body and the mind, which is very important for spiritual advancement. Of course, there are mechanical ways to do it, but nevertheless, it is useful. And of course, bhakti, because without bhakti, nothing actually can achieve or give fruition in the spiritual context. So that is what is being explained. Of course, this chapter has been targeted mainly towards the jnanis and the yogis, with the intention of making them understand that ultimately you have to come to pure bhakti. So while it is good for us to understand all this, from a practical aspect, I'm just mentioning this so we are all clear. From a practical aspect, for us, after all this analysis, the conclusion that we will come to is that we have to perform sadhana bhakti nicely. With a clear and pure intention to develop pure devotional service to please Krishna. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. And to cultivate detachment, we follow the four regulative principles. Whatever material prescribed duties we do that with detachment. So aspects of karma yoga are there, aspects of tyaga are there, but the ultimate goal is never lost. Is never lost in the sense that we don't deviate from the focus of our ultimate goal, which is to develop pure devotion to the Lord. And all these other things we do as a necessary part of our being in this material world, so that we can interact with it in a way which is befitting and in a way that it doesn't entangle us as we are cultivating our devotion. Because in our initial stages, our devotion is also like a very tiny sprout. If our devotion was a blazing fire, then we wouldn't even have to think of anything else. Then we can immediately jump to 18.64, 65, 66. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. हम त्वाम सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचा. और अनन्यश्चिन्तयन्तो माम ये जना पर्युपासते तेषां नित्याभियुक्तानां योगक्षेमं वहाम्यहम्. If you're always thinking of me without devotion in a pure way, don't worry about anything. I will take care of everything that you need to take care. But unfortunately, most of us are not evolved to that level. So we have to take care to make sure, as we are finding our grounding in bhakti, we are making sure that our material aspects of life are well balanced, well taken care of, so that we are not performing activities which will entangle us further and slow down our progress in our spiritual journey. And also so that based on our psychophysical nature, our conditionings, we find duties which are compatible with that nature, so that our life while we are in this material world is more peaceful, more satisfied, so that we can focus without much distraction on our spiritual sadhana. So for a devotee, ultimately, even when he adopts some aspects of karma, when I say karma, I'm talking about karma yoga, some aspects of jnana yoga, uh, some aspects of ashtanga yoga. If some of them may be doing some pranayam, some of them may be doing some amount of some other practices of yogas, whether it is asanas or some other practices. Even though it is not necessary, if they are doing it, if they are finding it helpful, as long as the ultimate objective is yoga. And ultimately, yoga means bhakti yoga, because yoga means to actually connect. And connection here is in the context of developing love, a loving relationship with the Lord. It's not just about knowing. Just like in this world, so many people are so keen and they're so excited about some famous film star or some famous football star. I was just reading in the news recently, uh, Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't know how many of you know him. I'm not a football fan, but he's apparently one of the most top football players in the world and the most highly paid. And you know, so many people are crazy. He has the largest number of Instagram followers for any person on the planet. I just found that out today. I happened to chance upon something because something interesting came about. They said, this just happened a few days ago. I don't remember the date. He was giving a press conference and there were some Coca-Cola bottles on the desk next to him. And because he's very health conscious, and there was a water bottle, he picked up the Coca-Cola bottles, he kept them away, and he put the water bottle in front of him and said, "No Coca-Cola, only water." And he said that one comment of his, they claim, I mean, this was the news, that one comment from him was so devastating to Coca-Cola, just because he moved the bottles aside when he was doing that, that there was a loss for a few billion US dollars for Coca-Cola. The share prices fell just by that one gesture of his. So it's very interesting how some of these rich, famous players, how influential they are. Anyway, that's a secondary point. That's not the main thing what I wanted to speak about. But the point is that so many people want to develop a relationship with him. I was just saying that, they're so excited because even one statement he says makes so much influence. But developing a relationship with a famous player like Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, most people will do what? They will read, they will understand what he likes, what he dresses, who's his wife, who his children, which school his children go to, how much is his annual income, what car he has. That is all theoretical information. Is that actually resulting in a development of a relationship? No, right? Maybe in your own mind, but there is no practical relationship. So we are not just talking about a theoretical understanding of God in that sense. We in Bhakti, we want to develop a practical relationship. So yoga ultimately is not just about that jnana angle. That's what I'm coming to. It's not about just knowing about Cristiano Ronaldo. It is about developing a direct relationship with him, where he knows you, you know him, you have breakfast together. I'm not promoting him. I'm just taking this example. I don't know anything about him. I'm just giving this example because we can relate to material situations better. So similarly, jnana, ashtanga, karma may gradually bring us closer and closer to understanding. But our ultimate point of yoga is equal to connection, is equal to bhakti yoga. Because it is bhakti where one actually develops a relationship. That is the end game. So in the Bhagavad, because the Bhagavatam is ultimately aimed at developing pure devotional service, you will see that even when other aspects of yoga are being described, the incarnations of the Lord, the devotees make sure we understand that ultimately you have to come to bhakti. If you have failed to come to bhakti after going through the stepping stones of karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, if you have stopped at any of them, then you have only, then you're not graduated. You're not come to the culmination of yoga. If you have just done karma yoga and stuck there and not gone beyond that, then you're stuck in primary school. You're just at 4th standard and just remain there. Don't go beyond there. Then you come to Jnana Yoga, then you go in mid school. But then you don't go beyond there, you're still stuck because you're not fully developed your relationship. You're getting it, started detaching. Then you're starting to develop some knowledge about God. But everything is about yoga, connect. But you're not yet there. You're getting closer, but you're not yet there. Then you make a focused effort through dhyan. You come to high school. But then Bhakti Yoga is the graduation school. That's where you actually come to the point of, okay, now I understand everything. Now I know I have to detach. I cannot enjoy material energy. I'm a part and parcel of the Lord. I must surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So those who are actually very fortunate to develop that faith in bhakti, Shraddha Shabde Vishwasa Kohe, Sudruda Nishchaya Krishna Bhakti Kaile Sarva Karma Krita Hai. This faith is very rare. Very rare. If you have that faith, and I'm very sure many of you who are here have that faith. If you have that faith, then you have something which many Ashtanga yogis who have been even meditating in the Himalayas for decades or many lifetimes may not have yet achieved. This is the truth. But that doesn't mean, wow, I'm so great. Pat yourself on the back. I'm greater than. It's not that we are great. We have been fortunate that somehow through the association of devotees, that seed of pure bhakti has been given to us. You cannot go and purchase that in the market. You cannot throw punya at it and buy it. You cannot throw tapas at it and buy it. This is a gift given by the pure devotees and the Lord. So Bhagavatam is always, while even it is talking about other aspects, it is always emphasizing that you have to come to this point. Because the ultimate culmination of our spiritual journey is to develop that loving relationship. Without that, our heart will never feel fully fulfilled. That's why the whole beginning of the Bhagavatam is from that. The whole beginning of the Bhagavatam, the first canto, is where Vyasadeva is feeling that I have written everything about karma yoga, about jnana, ashtanga, impersonal liberation. I've written a little bit about bhakti also. But then his Guru Narad Muni comes and says, no, you are feeling still incomplete in your heart because you have not adequately described your devotional service and the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because that is the ultimate culmination. That is the full fructification, the full blossoming of the consciousness of the soul. That is where the soul becomes truly fragrant, the fully blown lotus. So that is the culmination. That is very important. And that is why we worship Gita and Bhagavatam, because Gita and Bhagavatam bring us to that point. Whereas many other scriptures, while they are also helping in the spiritual journey, they are covering certain steps in the journey. Gita and Bhagavatam are graduate and postgraduate books. Gita is graduate, Bhagavatam is postgraduate. So right now you're already in postgraduate. While the yogis in the Himalayas, many of them may still be in primary or mid school or high school. So you have got special admission directly in graduate school. Why? Because that faith in bhakti has appeared by some great good fortune which has been bestowed upon us by the great souls. That is our great fortune. Why I'm mentioning this? Because this is a central theme. If you understand this point, you'll understand what this chapter is about. Because this chapter is not saying something new that we haven't discussed earlier. This chapter is essentially giving that summary. So let us cover, I just need around 10 odd minutes to cover the summary of the verses. We discussed how Devahuti asked so many questions about how to extricate, and how Lord Kapila explained that it is essentially the entanglement which is caused by the living entities' association with the modes of material nature, and that association with the modes of material nature comes about What is it that caused that stickiness between material nature and the soul? Of course, the soul has a false ego, but what is that stickiness? What is that which is sticking? Because the soul is spiritual, body is material. What is that adhesive which is sticking? Correct? Because I can tell you, okay, your soul, your body, oh, yes. Okay, now let me just leave and go. Free from all karma, I realized. Try to go, we are still stuck, isn't it? What is it that is sticking to us? So he's explaining the sticking is that association of the three modes, which is essentially at its deepest level characterized by a desire to enjoy or lord it over material nature. And that desire to lord it over material nature, and that is why sometimes that is called as the prime sin, the first sin. Where rather than serving the Lord, we want to turn away from Him and enjoy the world, trying to be lords of our own. And then that impure desire takes the form of the false ego in three qualities: sattva, raja, and tama. And that is what he says. Now, Mother Devahuti is, even though she accepts that, she's telling in verse 17, she's telling Lord Kapila, her son, she's saying, she's referring to him as Brahmana. Oh, my dear Brahman, rather than calling him a son. Is it really possible to get extricated from the material energy? Because the consciousness of the conditioned living entity is so intricately entwined into this material body, it's so difficult to differentiate it. It's so difficult to be in the body and actually maintain that detached view. Because you are saying, right? She's telling Lord Kapila, you are saying that we must develop the vision of being a witness rather than a participator in the activities that the body performs. Guna guneshu vartanta iti matvana sajjate. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is saying, ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate prakrutehe kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasya. That the body is acting, the conditioned body is acting influenced by the modes of material nature, and activities are being performed. The soul has a desire based on its conditioning, and activities just get performed. The mind, the body, senses react in particular ways, just like a machine programmed. But the bewildered soul, because of false ego, thinks he is doing. Actually, the soul is not doing. Material energy is executing. But the stickiness of the soul is because of his desire to enjoy, and that is why he becomes bewildered. This is a very important point to understand, but it's a very subtle point. If you're not able to understand this immediately, it is okay, but do contemplate on it. This is a very important point to understand. And that is why in the Gita as well as the Bhagavatam, the yogi, all categories of yogis are ultimately advised. If you want to stop that stickiness, you want to slowly detach, because the recommendation to not get entangled in the modes of material nature and develop karma, Guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate. Na sajjate, Krishna says in the book. Na sajjate means he doesn't get attached. He watches it. He knows the body is automatically acting based on the modes. And he doesn't develop a desire to enjoy. That is possible because of his cultivation of spiritual knowledge and purity, which comes through a level of cultivation of detachment as well. And that is what essentially Lord Kapila is trying to say. This is nothing different. But Mother Devahuti says, well, technically, theoretically, it sounds good, but how, when I'm living in the body, I can always maintain that kind of a vision? It's so difficult. Is it really possible? Sometimes, some people think, yes, spiritual life theoretically sounds very nice. Being free from all karma sounds very nice. I don't think it is practical. So she's also feeling, oh, this is not how to live like this, how to work like this. Just like the fragrance of the earth cannot be separated from the earth. The taste of the water cannot be separated from water. This consciousness, the pradnya, the intelligence is so much a part of this body. How to detach it and see it like that? Yes, we want to be a passive performer of the activities. We want to keep ourselves disassociated. Just like the Padma Patra Ivambasa, the lotus flower, the lotus leaf, which is above the mud. so that it's not affected by the mud while it is in the mud. How is that even doable? Because even if one intellectually inspired by a class thinks, yes, I am the lotus, yes, does that really give us that vision? Or even if it gives us that vision intellectually for a few seconds, how many of us can even maintain that vision? Are you understanding? Are you following what I'm saying? Sometimes when we read the Bhagavad, when we hear Gita Bhagavatam, we just go to a high state for a few seconds. Yes, devotion, yes, detachment, I can see. Huh? But after class, what happens? Immediate discharge. It's so hard to maintain that vision. Isn't it? Or maybe only it's hard for me. Maybe all of you are easily maintained. Then you should all bless me that I can also develop that vision and maintain that vision. It's not easy. As we get purified, slowly, we will develop. We'll be able to do this more and more and more, but it is not easy. And she's also saying the same thing. Is that really practical? Is it really doable? How to maintain that vision? Because that mentality, the conditioning will appear again and again and again and drag the consciousness down. Exactly like what's happening to all of us, right? Devahuti is representing us and asking that question. Because the original cause has not been eradicated. Devahuti is saying, she knows, she's also hinting at the answer. Because the original cause has not been addressed, even with all this understanding and external practices, this knowledge cultivation, this yogic cultivation, at the end of the day, it's so difficult. You try, it's very hard, it'll again come back. Try, it'll again come back. Because the root problem has not been addressed, she says in text 20. And then she waits for Lord Kapil to answer. By the way, what is the root problem? We have been discussing this many times. Anyone? What is the root problem that Devahuti is referring to? Anyone?
False identification, Prabhu.
Yeah, but false identification came about because of what? What was the original sin that I mentioned just 10 minutes ago? False identification came after that step.
Desire to enjoy.
Very good. Yes, Bhaskar Prabhu is right. Our desire to enjoy independently of the Lord, our desire to lord it over material nature. She is saying if we don't address the root problem, she's hinting at it. All this jnana, ashtanga are all going to be gymnastics which may cause some temporary adjustments. It's not going to solve the problem. So is it really possible to live like that just by doing jnana and yoga? And in verse 21, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kapila, answers her. And he agrees, oh, my mother is very smart, very intelligent. He says, yes, you are right. It is only possible to get liberation truly only by seriously engaging in devotional service to me. Very intensely and for a prolonged period. By hearing and chanting my glories directly from me or from my devotees. If we engage in that bhakti, then the root cause will be addressed. Because the root cause is about trying to lord, the root cause is trying to enjoy independently. If you don't do bhakti, all other processes don't address this root problem adequately. They do some external ointment treatment, but they do not pluck out the problem. You know, like a boil, a boil. If you have a boil on the skin, if you simply apply ointment on it, maybe in one place the boil may subside, but then suddenly after 2 days, you'll see it has come on the other hand. You put some ointment there. Yes, ointment is helping, but it is only doing a symptomatic treatment when the boil comes here. Then you go to the doctor and you say, doctor, what happened? The previous doctor gave me ointment, but boils one going from here but coming here, then going from here coming here. That doctor says, yeah, that ointment is there, but that is only doing symptomatic treatment. Don't be excited. You want to cure the problem at the root, or you want symptomatic? Says, no, 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 no. At the root, because I've tried symptomatic. It is not giving me lasting remedy. Okay. Then the root cause of your problem is that there is some impurity in your blood. So I'm going to give you some medicines where you have to take for some time. It may be a bit more painful than just putting some ointment, because you have to follow certain lifestyle, you have to take certain medicines. But once the impurity is removed, because that is the root cause of the boils, then you will be free. So he follows that, and because he addresses the root cause, he gets cured completely. So that is the difference between bhakti and the other processes. Bhakti aims straight at the heart of the problem. What is the heart of the problem? Correct? Ravana cannot be killed by cutting his hands, legs, head. You have to aim it straight at the heart. Lord Ram aimed. Yes? Like that, we have to deal with the root of the problem. And that's why Lord Kapila also says, by hearing about me or from me for a long time, one must seriously engage in devotional service. So what Lord Kapila is recommending, we are already doing right now. Isn't it? Correct? So fortunately for all of us, we didn't have to go through all the other steps. Somehow we became fortunate by the association of pure devotees, like Srila Prabhupada and others. And by their grace, this has all become possible. And as you are doing this, Lord Kapila says, yes, you can continue to perform your prescribed duties because you're not a renounced person, you're still in this world. But do it with detachment and do it with this consciousness of dedication towards me, then you'll not be affected by material nature and you will not be contaminated. That true separation, where you can maintain that vision of the difference between exploiting the world and serving the Lord, that vision will be maintained. That detachment, the detached view of how the modes are acting by themselves, that will be possible only when one is constantly steeped in the consciousness that I am simply part and parcel of the Lord, and I must serve the Lord and dedicate my body, mind, soul, my energies, my wealth, everything in the service of the Lord. When one develops that consciousness, automatically, as long as we maintain that consciousness, one will automatically see that separation. Try it out. You will experience this. And when you maintain that consciousness, you will automatically, without any extraneous effort, be able to see guna guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. Because you're no longer trying to enjoy matter. Material consciousness is that of exploitation. Spiritual consciousness is that of dedication. Okay? Exploitation, dedication. Exploitation means for myself. Dedication means for the service of the Lord. One is selfish, one is yajna. These basic things, if you understand properly, everything else becomes very simple. Then you understand why bhakti is so wonderful, because bhakti is going straight to the root of the problem. It's not doing symptomatic treatment. So he strongly recommends this. He says that the living entity is so attached to material nature by these three modes. And he's so busy in this activity. But somehow, if the living entity is able to seriously discharge devotional service and perform his activities in a devotional consciousness, then the same fire of material existence, which was burning him, that same fire, when it is spiritualized into a yajna fire instead of a fire of material existence, the activities may be the same, but the consciousness is different. You understand? The activity is the same, but the consciousness is different. One was exploitative, now it is dedicative. External activities may be the same, So the fire of material existence becomes like a beautiful yajna fire in the wood. And what does that fire do? That the fire which comes from the wood ultimately consumes the wood itself. Which means the subtle body and all the karma, everything will be consumed in the fire of this yajna, where one is dedicating all of one's activities to the service of the Lord. So this is the problem. When one understands the faultiness of his desiring to lord it over material nature and decides to give it up, then the living entity actually becomes independent and is able to stand in his own glory. Text 24. Very beautiful statement. Such a powerful statement. This is very, very important to understand. Discovering the faultiness of his desiring to lord it over material nature. Most of the others, even various kinds of religious paradigms, thinkings, philosophies, most of them do not come to this point of understanding the faultiness of desiring to lord it over. And they ultimately use even spiritual practices, religious principles, ultimately for some selfish purpose. All purposes which are not dedicated to serving the Lord are considered selfish. Some of them may be more subtle, some of them may be gross. So in that sense, some may be considered good in this world. But we are talking from the ultimate perspective. From the ultimate perspective, anything which is not aimed at dedication and service to the Lord is entangling for the jiva into material energy. But when the living entity has given up that mentality of trying to lord it over, then he becomes purified. Then he can maintain that consciousness, my dear mother. This is the solution to the question that you asked. Just like a person who's in a dream, so covered up in his dream, he doesn't know what is true, what is not. He becomes so scared. He sees so many scary things. But when he becomes fully awake and conscious, he understands things as they are and he loses all fear and becomes peaceful. Similarly, the soul who has awakened to his real identity as the eternal servant of the Lord, even though he's in this world, even though he's in the body, he is able to see clearly the truth as it is. He's able to remain detached. Padma Patra Ivam Basa. And he's not affected. Material energy doesn't bewilder him. Of course, material nature still acts. Because the body is there, the material nature will act. But he understands how it works. He doesn't desire to enjoy it. Neither does he hanker, nor does he lament. He becomes indifferent. Udasa sinavat. So if a gulab jam comes of its own accord, he may take it. If it doesn't come also, he's okay. He will do his duty in a detached way. If he gets a promotion, is okay. If he doesn't get, it's okay. If he loses his job, also okay. Okay in the sense, of course, he does his duty. Just knows that according to the rules of material nature and ultimately supervised by the Lord, because he's a devotee, everything is happening and will be orchestrated perfectly for his ultimate good. So he goes through it and he lets material nature take its own course. He draws the right lessons and matures spiritually. Doesn't get bogged down, doesn't get frustrated, because he knows everything is being done in a way that is ultimately pushing his consciousness up. If he takes it positively, if he becomes frustrated and fights it, he is just making it difficult for himself. All situations in life are brought about for helping develop our consciousness towards perfection. We have to slowly learn to see it like that. When we are able to learn to see it like that in the true sense, and this vision is very difficult to get unless one is strongly in the association of devotees, doing strong sadhana, regularly reading Gita Bhagavad. This vision is very difficult to maintain. But if one does that, then through all the lessons that are coming, even through our failures. Ultimately, what is success and what is failure? It is not the outcome. If through a situation we have grown spiritually, then it is a success. Even though materially we may have failed or we have been successful. If we have materially become successful, but our consciousness went down in the process, then we have failed. Isn't it? So that is why for a sadhaka whose ultimate aspiration is spiritual perfection, they always measure their success based on the barometer of the development of their consciousness. Because perfect peace and perfect happiness is possible only for a perfect consciousness, not for perfect success. Success is only an external manifestation and is temporary. Whether on the material side of things or on the spiritual side of things, when I talk about success. When I say success on the spiritual side means getting great respect as a devotee, being very erudite and learned, having a high position in a spiritual organization. All these things are also not by themselves spiritual attainments. They are facilities for rendering better service. But ultimately, our consciousness has to come to the point of this, that one gives up his desire to lord it over material nature and man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Oh Lord, after trying so hard for so many lifetimes to enjoy independently, finally I understood. Oh God, thank you. Finally I understood. All this while I was struggling with understanding the basic problem, the root cause of my suffering was my desire to enjoy independently. Let me now slowly organize myself, slowly start channeling all my mind, my consciousness, my senses, my activities, my wealth, my energy, my resource, which ultimately actually come from you and belong to you only. So let me recognize that and engage them in your service. In that way, my true nature will bloom. And when the lotus of my heart blooms, of my consciousness blooms, the beautiful aroma that will come will be the perfect fulfillment of my heart's deepest desires. So that is what Lord Kapila is hinting, that such a soul will not be affected even when he is material nature. And when he engages in such bhakti, and sometimes it may take many lifetimes, eventually he will become so detached from matter. The initial stages, we may just be detached from, just enough detached to follow the 4 regulative principles. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. But eventually, when one continues bhakti, one develops so much of detachment. Detachment here doesn't mean that one renounces externally things, but detachment, which means that he doesn't desire to enjoy. The detachment comes to such a point that they become reluctant to enjoy any of the material planets. They're not even wanting to go to heaven. Even up to Brahmaloka, the sadhaka doesn't want. So there are so many pure devotees when sometimes the Lord comes and asks them, okay, I give you the blessing, you can go to higher planets, you can go to heaven, you can go up to Brahmaloka. The devotee says, no, I'm not interested. At the end of the day, it is still about material enjoyment. It is still about lording over. And if it is about lording over, ultimately I'm going to suffer because they have understood the root problem. So that shows that they are actually very evolved, because Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, Sakale, Ashanta, those who have any kind of desire to enjoy independently, they will all be frustrated ultimately. They cannot be peaceful. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ata Eva Shanta. That the pure devotee of the Lord, because he has no other desire than serving the Lord, is perfectly peaceful, because the desire to purely serve the Lord itself is the source of complete satisfaction to the soul, independent of what is happening externally. Now, this also is a very, very difficult principle to understand. But let us at least intellectually accept it for now. Some of us may not be able to appreciate it. Of course, I cannot say I also have full understanding, but some small glimpse. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the difficulties and challenges that I go through in my service to Krishna in this world, are the source of my greatest ecstasy. Now, how to understand this? It is practically illogical to us. So this is some things are very difficult to understand with a rational material mind. But essentially, what we can understand is, if we are deeply dedicated to serving the Lord with pure heart, then no matter what situation, no matter success, failure, calamities, deep inside in our heart, we will spiritually be so happy and nourished. It is as good as becoming or being in the spiritual world. Grihete Goloka Bhaya. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, my house has become like Goloka. Since the time I've given up all desire to enjoy selfishly and focus myself on serving you, my Lord. Grihete Goloka Bhaya. Bhaya means ho gaya. Not bhaya means fear. My griha has become Goloka. So that is why we want to strive for not external attainments. We want to strive towards develop the perfection of consciousness. And that perfection of consciousness is the full dedication of the consciousness. It is not about renouncing external duties, but to do everything as a yajna. Yajnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So when one continues this process over many lifetimes, one becomes so advanced in one's purity, one doesn't want to go to even to the higher planets. The only desire one has is he wants to serve Krishna. If Krishna says, go to heaven, okay, you want me to serve there, fine. Krishna says, no, I don't want you to go back to Godhead now after this life. You know, so many devotees are, so many people are there. I want somebody to preach in this world and to serve. Another 3 lifetimes, I want you to be here in this Kali Yuga and continue preaching. So what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying is that also is a great source of ecstasy. For us, oh, Krishna, what is this? So much I did for you, you are giving me 3 more births. But for the pure devotees, I got an opportunity to serve Krishna. Jai. And pleasing Krishna is my greatest ecstasy. It's not about me going somewhere and doing something for myself. I'm just explaining so you at least theoretically understand what is the consciousness we are working towards. Yeah. I'm also very far away from that. But at least we start by understanding what is it that we are working towards and why it is the most desirable thing. Once we become convinced, then with great determination, we can take to this process and path. Otherwise, we will not understand what is this we are doing. So when a devotee practices with such firm determination, he actually becomes fully realized in this understanding by the causeless mercy of the Lord, Lord Kapila says. And that time he becomes free from all doubts. And finally, he transcends material nature and progresses unhindered towards the supreme destination of the spiritual world. And after giving up this body, Yad Gatvana Nivartante Tadhamam Paramam Mama. He reaches the supreme abode that Krishna speaks about in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam. And then he never comes back. And in the higher stages of yogic attainments, what to speak of attraction to the heavenly planets, the yogi doesn't even have attraction to the mystic powers that may come about. Because as one advances in spiritual practices, not only is it becomes easy for the yogi to attain higher planets, it also develops siddhis. They may be able to manifest, they may be able to do. Things they speak will start happening. They just say something and it happens. They say something, it happens. And many of you will also experience this in due course. That you say something and it happens. This happens because as the soul becomes more and more purified, one's words, one's desires become so powerful that they actually are able to affect the world. That is why it is said, no, one must always be careful when one interacts with saintly people. When they wish good for us, they just think good for us, it becomes a blessing. So powerful. They don't even have to raise their hand and put on the head and say, I bless. Just their wishing, just their thinking is so powerful. And and also mystic powers develop, but those who are very advanced, Lord Kapila says, even these mystic powers, they say as these are distractions. I'm not interested. Becoming larger than the largest, smaller than the smallest, becoming invisible, getting whatever I want, creating planets out of thin air. All these siddhis, anima, lagima, prapti, kama, vashaita, and so many, eight big siddhis are there. They also don't attract. That is the proof that the yogi has actually come to the point of intense and pure realization that I have to give up the desire to lord it over material nature and fully dedicate myself to the Lord. In one of my first meetings with my own spiritual master, Radhanath Maharaj, this was in 93, I think, 1993. So I was sitting in his room. I don't know, I think Amit, you were also there in that conversation. I think so. Amit is here. He was been with me. We went to the temple first together. Yeah, Amit? Amit has been in the journey with me for the last 30 years. He's one of my dearest friends. So we both went to the temple together. So in that conversation, I asked Radhanath Maharaj, I asked him, Maharaj, does a devotee have mystic powers? And he gave a very nice answer. Even if a devotee has mystic powers by his advancement, he's not even bothered to know whether he has it or he doesn't have it. He may have it, but he may not even be knowing, or he may not even be bothered to find out, because a devotee is exclusively dependent on the Lord and interested only in serving the Lord. It's a beautiful answer. And at that time, of course, now I can appreciate that answer a little bit more. At that time, I was really scratching my head. What is this, he said. How can you not be excited if you can fly, if you can get what you want? Because the deep realization comes that I don't become happy by controlling material nature. I become happy by understanding I'm part and parcel of the Lord and by serving the Lord. Such a very beautiful consciousness. So that is what purity we are aiming in terms of pure devotional service. So it is so wonderful. So this is what Bhagavatam is leading us towards. So this is how he concludes this chapter. So I'll stop here. There are 4-5 more minutes. I need to head off to another class at 9:30 sharp. So I'm not going to take any questions right now. If you have any questions, we can take it in the subsequent session, or you can separately ping me offline on the chat and we can discuss. I quickly want to go into 5 minutes to share about some opportunities for seva for Lord Jagannath in Jagannath Puri. I had mentioned that in WhatsApp group. Last year, many of you had participated in this seva. So this is currently a very, very special period. I'm just going to spend 2-3 minutes. For details of the sevas, you can refer to the WhatsApp message I sent just half an hour before. Thanks to Amit Prabhu, he helped to compile it. So I spoke to the Pujari. He's a Daitapati of Jagannath temple. So who's a Daitapati? There are different categories of sevakas of Lord Jagannath. There are the Pandas, there are the Daitapatis, there are the Swaras. So I'm not going to go into the details of all this, but the Daitapatis are direct descendants of Vishwavasu. Vishwavasu was the original servant of Lord Neela Madhav, who later disappeared and Jagannath came in his place. So that's a very beautiful pastime. So he was the Lord of the Shabara race, the king of the Shabaras, and he was the original worshipper. So his descendants. So they are all considered like the family of Lord Jagannath. So very, very intimate sevas of Jagannath are managed by the descendants. So no matter how qualified we become, we will never be given that seva for Jagannath. Because Jagannath's desire is that the descendants of Vishwavasu will do that seva. So if you want that, you have to be born in that family. So this Pujari, he's a very good friend of ours, Shibani Daitapati. So he's based in Puri, he renders the seva. So they are also known as the Anga Sevaka of Jagannath. Anga Sevaka means they are personal bodily attendants of Jagannath. Anga ka seva, directly serving the body. So in this period, after Snan Yatra, Jagannath performs the Leela of being sick. So in his Leela of being sick, he needs to be taken care of. So, his Anga Sevakas, the Daitapatis come in, they take over the Seva. And in this case, they give him various kinds of special. The darshan is closed. It is known as the Anavasar period. The darshan is closed for the devotees in general. And they take care. So there are various services they apply actually the first few days after Snan Yatra, because the Lord develops fever. They massage him with various kinds of oils. I think it's called some Fulluri oil lagi seva, something like that. There is a name. Then there are various different kinds of auspicious ingredients that they use to treat the body of the Lord for a few days. So there are various kinds of therapeutic treatments done because they serve the Lord like a family member. And this particular Daitapati is personally involved in this seva. He actually serves the Lord. He's not just somebody who just writes a receipt and accepts donation. He actually performs these sevas. He and his family, they cook the bhoga. In this Anavasar period, the Lord doesn't accept his chappan bhog. There are fruits, there is some malai, and there is some special bhoga. I think Panchanan bhoga or something like that it is called. I have mentioned in the WhatsApp message. So those bhogas are offered to the Lord every day because he's on a light meal. Panchanan, yeah, Panchan bhoga, yes. So this is what is done. And then after some days, the Lord, because his fever becomes high, his whole body is covered with chandan. There's a chandan seva. So these sevas are performed in an Anavasar period. So these are opportunities for us if we want to contribute something towards the seva during this Anavasar period when the Lord is sick, because this is a very private period for the Lord, where his family members are only involved. So if your heart so desires to render one of these services, again, this is all voluntary. I'm just explaining this to you. There is, I'm just sharing the opportunity he's extending to me. I'm not asking you to participate. Okay, let me be very clear. I'm not asking you to participate. I am doing this in the consciousness of extending the opportunity to you, because I'm thinking Krishna is Jagannath is giving this opportunity to me. Why only I should get this benefit? So I'm extending it to all of you. So the choice is entirely yours. Yeah, I'm just extending the opportunity to you. It is perfectly okay if you cannot contribute. It is perfectly okay if you can contribute whatever you want. In either case, it doesn't mean, and I'm not even going to publish who's contributing, who's not. It's a very private thing. You can give your details privately to me. I don't want to create a situation where anybody feels pressured to contribute in any way. So let me be very clear.
Do we need to transfer to you, Prabhuji? How we can transfer?
I'll come to that. So let me just complete this. So apart from this, so then there is the towards the end of the Anavasar period, there's a Netrotsav festival where Jagannath gives his first darshan before Jagannath Rath Yatra. It's usually, I think, one day before the Jagannath Rath Yatra. And then there is the Rath Yatra where the Lord is dressed and first time he comes out. And then there are some sevas there. So you can read about that. And then he's taken to Gundicha temple where he spends a few days. Gundicha temple is equal to Vrindavan. And there also the Lord is served with bhoga. And also the Sevayats and the Brahmins there are fed Jagannath's Mahaprasad. So that is also considered a very auspicious seva of Annadan there, which also a lot of blessings are there. So I mentioned some of these sevas there. And I asked the Daitapati that, is there a specific number in terms of contribution to each of these? He says, no, because there'll be thousands of devotees who want to somehow contribute to the seva. Yeah. So it is not that you can buy that seva and it becomes exclusively yours. That is not the idea. So there may be many. So the idea is, if your heart feels, I want to offer this seva, I want to offer a garland, I want to offer chandan, whatever, or I want to offer the Annadan bhog. So this is an opportunity for you in your heart to offer that seva, and whatever contribution you want, you can give. Then you can give your what seva and what amount. Then all of that we will share with the Daitapati. Then he will actually, when he's rendering the seva to the Lord, of course, he will use that Lakshmi also, and he will also pray to the Lord on our behalf. Correct? That is the idea. So I hope you all understand that. So, okay, so I need to rush. So basically, for the payment, my suggestion is all those who have Indian bank accounts, okay, okay, Indian bank accounts. I don't want to be the intermediary. I will give you the account details of the Panda directly. Okay. I want this to be very transparent. So you can directly give to him and share the receipt of his payment to me for the simple reason so that I can collate the names of all those who are offering service. So he knows that it's a part of this group. Yeah, the money transfer doesn't have to go to me. Okay, but you can give and then I can collate and give so that when he's offering the services, he knows who is doing for what. So we will put that together in one place.
Okay.
So we will do it like that. So his account details I will share on the WhatsApp group.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
So for even for those who are abroad, they will have their NRO account. So you can do from there, you can do a NEFT or a IMPS transfer. For those who are in Malaysia and those who cannot do this, if they need help because they cannot do a direct transfer, then you do a ringgit transfer to me and I will do through my equivalent account in India. I will try to route the money. Okay, so this is again just to facilitate it. It doesn't have to go through me. There is nothing I get in the process other than your blessings. Okay, so is that clear? Yeah. Any pressing question that anybody wants to ask? Yeah, Bhaskar Prabhu.
Yeah, that sounds good, Prabhuji. So I have an Indian account, so I can transfer from there.
Yes. You can give, and whatever your payment slip you send to me, tell me what services and what amount. Give your name. And if you have a specific reason why you want to offer a seva, you are seeking a specific, you're offering a specific prayer or a help from the Lord, you can mention that also. So the Pujari can also offer that to the Lord.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Prabhu.
Like that to the Lord.
Yeah.
Prabhu,
Okay.
the Annadanam, Prabhu, is it ongoing at the moment during this COVID? I mean, are they actually having a...
Okay, so for the COVID, the Annadanam that is happening, and we did this last year was also COVID time, they do for the Brahmins and the Pandas who are there. Okay, so when you see the Ratha and the Rath Yatra, there are hundreds of Sevayats who are and Brahmins who are serving the Lord. So this is not Annadanam for the public. That is not there. Yeah. So this is Annadanam where the Jagannath Mahaprasad will be fed the various Brahmins and the Pandas and the Daitapatis and the other Sevayats there. That is the,
Prabhu,
that
thank
is
you.
the main idea. Yeah. And even the Rath Yatra is going to be done by the servants of the Lord. It is not going to be a public festival this year also. Okay, so I need to go. Any other questions you can write to me. So I hope this is clear, and I will share the account details. And it can be any small amount, right? I mean, some of you want to give 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees, 2,000, 5,000, whatever is comfortable for you. Yeah, it is not necessary to give big amounts. Give according to your capacity, and see what service attracts your heart, so that mentally you can offer it to the Lord, and then you can just mention that. Then the Pujari will do accordingly. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Lord
Prabhu.
Jagannath ki,
Jai.
Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Prabhupada ki, Hare